Yes.
Okay, I'll get this thing started. Here, Nick.
Good, good way to get it started. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about HackerSpaces.
We should probably get started by introducing ourselves.
Yeah, that's a
Why
good
don't you
idea.
go for it?
Okay. I'm Mudflap. I'm a founding member of the Hacker Consortium here in Nashville. I am the secretary.
I didn't think about that, did you?
I'm Nicodemus. I'm one of the founding members of the Hackerspace in Huntsville, Alabama, Makers Local 256. And
I'm Seablind. I'm one of the founding members of the local HackerSpace Hacker Consortium.
I'm Tim, and I'm from Makers Local 256 in Huntsville, Alabama. Not one of the founding members, but been there for a while.
I'm Ulysses, one of the founding members of the Cowtown Computer Congress in Kansas City. I was the administrator of propaganda, but we voted in a new board, so we're well on our way into our second year now.
And I'm Info, a founding member of Freeside Atlanta.
Oh, and my official title is I'm secretary, but the title that I go under the most is I'm director of opportunities and acquisitions, which means I'm the chief beggar. So, anyway.
well, let's see, which Hackerspace is the newest here?
Freeside's only been in our space for about 3 or 4 months. We started about February or March, but didn't have the space until about May, June.
Cool. So would you mind giving us a short
It's
story?
awesome. Short enough?
A short story about like how you got started.
Word, 2 words, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, actually, the majority of our founding members, I'm not one of them, but the majority of our founding members know each other as colleagues at Google in Atlanta. A couple of them have had history of starting hackerspaces in other cities. Some of them not very successful. Freeside is quite successful. It essentially started out with a couple of these guys putting out a blog post saying, hey, is anyone in Atlanta interested? Yep, there was. So we've met for several months at just a local Atlanta area tavern, discussed a number of things, looked at a number of different spaces, did our research to see how other hacker spaces started, what mistakes they run into, so we wouldn't make them, or at least as severely. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Skip ahead a little bit for a few months. Ended up with a 5,500 square foot warehouse about 3 or 4, maybe 5 months ago now. I think it's about 4 months ago though. Down in Atlanta, 5,500 square foot warehouse. Started out with 50 paying members or so. That was a membership cap that I believe the board is considering adjusting right now, that we got a feel of how things are going. But at our space, we do a little bit of everything. I think a recent survey done by some magazine said about 1/3 of us are coders, and the other 2/3 are more makers and hands-on people. So our space consists of obviously some computer stuff, a lot of electronic stuff, some welding and construction stuff, a little bit of everything. It's very obviously user driven. Most of the equipment, especially the larger equipment, is donated by members. So yeah, that's where we go. Do regular classes, open to the public, all kinds of fun stuff.
What would you attribute the rapid success to?
Honestly, the only marketing was more or less word of mouth, as I understand it. So I think our success would be attributed to months of planning, our research into what has failed in the past, and avoiding those mistakes for other people that other people have made. Taking our time and patience. We didn't choose the first place we saw, we've actually went through a fair number of places and scrutinized those quite closely before we finally settled on about 3 and negotiated with each of those 3 to get the best deal we could and put that to a vote of the regular attendees at the tavern meetings. So yeah, the success was, I would attribute it to a good dedicated core of people who are in the pre-planning stages, taking it slow and patiently, smartly, and doing our research.
What is your the membership fees?
Membership fees right now, regular member is $80 a month. There is a special quote-unquote starving hacker membership fee of 50% or $40 a month right now. That's a special thing for unemployed or students. You know, it's not like, oh my God, I'm hungry, I want the 50% off. Membership is not fully open in that new members must be sponsored by a member. After a member is sponsored, 2 people must be open fans to those members saying, you know, hey, I like this guy or whatever. After that, a small period, I believe about a week, where they open to comments about, usually, basically they say, does anyone have anything negative to say about this guy? Here's the private forum to say it in. That's voted on. And right now, through that process, I think we've had about 10 new members or so. No one's been denied through that process. Of course, the space is fairly open. As long as there's a member at the space that's willing to keep an eye on guests, we do have, I can think of at least a half dozen people who are not members who are there fairly regularly and are productive members, or are productive non-member persons.
So what can you tell us about your space?
We started with a core group of people. There was a call out for anybody interested in the hackerspace in Kansas City. There was a core group of us for about 4 months, really similar beginnings, meeting at a tavern. One of our big things was to get new members. What we would do is we would go solicit to lug groups or Perl, Ruby on Rails. We'd go talk with them and basically ask them for about 10 or 15 minutes of their time, and then invite them to come meet and help us plan the space so that the space could be built around the people who were planning it. We accumulated about 15 members that way, and then from there the growth was pretty exponential, just through word of mouth. Then we were fortunate enough to get an article in one of the local newspapers, and that helped out quite a bit. The original space that we were looking at was incubator type of space, where we would actually physically have to build out everything that we wanted, which was really nice. We were all really excited about it, just in the hacker spirit, because we would be able to completely customize our space. When the economy started to tank, this incubator space lost all of their funding and left us with 30, 35 members, enough rent for about 6 months, and absolutely no space whatsoever. So we went out and asked everybody, any time off, if you have, an hour for lunch or whatever, to go start looking. Somebody stumbled across this. It's kind of like a subtropolis cave office space area, and that was perfect. Everybody, fell in love with the idea of being in a cave, and we've been down there for about a year now. So, and we're actually we're at the point where we're growing enough that we may need to start looking for a space over the next year or year and a half.
How many people do you have now?
We have 40 members.
What is your fee structure and your member entry structure?
Our member entry structure is extremely open. Thursdays are when we do our typical weekly meetings where members will come. One big thing in the space that we chose was that it had to be 24-hour access. So what happens is basically all members have keys, which I should also mention all of our members make their own keys as soon as they pay their first month membership. That's a requirement, is that you have to cut your own key. So we do that, and then anytime that there's a paying member down there, anyone is welcome to come down, and basically anybody who will pay the $30 a month. That's that if you're paying month to month, it's $30, and then there are price breaks for 6 months, and then also a year. And just recently, in one of our Thursday meetings, we had the issue brought up of senior citizens discount, which was never an issue before, but we have 5 senior citizens ranging from electrical engineering to nuclear physicists. So we're pretty excited about that. They have a lot of interesting things to say. So we're trying to get them in there and find some kind of discount for
them. So who here is local, Nashville? Cool. Is there anything in particular you guys would like to ask the panel? Yes.
When we found our building, we had struggled in the past trying to form up the group and find a space, and the problem was always the rent, and it was killing everybody. So that's when I got in, and so the way we cured that is we got a dump of a building. So our project for the last 2 years really has been to rehab the space. So we've been learning carpentry and tiling and how to fix a roof and all that, but we have essentially taken care of that now. The only spot that we have left that is not unfinished is our classroom, which we'll probably attack after PhreakNIC, and then we're ready for projects. They have been working on some Arduino stuff. They had some security classes running through that. You want to pick up, C-Blind?
There's, as Mudflap mentioned, there's quite a few projects that have been sort of in the works, but because of the building, we've spent a lot of Saturdays doing that. Outside of the Arduino classes and security classes, we've been talking about doing woodworking classes, and the membership ranges in skill level, and from, we've got coders, we've got a couple of hardware guys, we've got engineers. So right now we don't have any major projects that multiple members are working on in space. Primarily, everybody shows up on Saturday, and it's kind of work on, if we're having a building day, typically most people will work on the building for a little bit and then go do a personal project on different things. And now that the building is pretty much finished, that it will be more about getting together and doing an Arduino class and then expanding on that into more different subjects.
But I'm not a coder by nature. A lot of these other guys are coder IT guys. I'm a civil engineer, and so it hadn't really bothered me to work on the building because I've learned an awful lot. I've learned how to tile. I did a set of cabinets, which is the first and last set of cabinets I'll ever do, but now I know what's involved in doing cabinets. One of the projects, it's open to start your own project, and once we get the classroom finished off, I think what I'm going to do is build a sailboat, rowboat, in our spot, because a couple of sheets of plywood and a space to work. We've got all the woodworking tools. I'm going to do it and call it the Hacker Consortium Yacht.
Any other questions?
What about you guys? What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing anyway?
First, the makers got to do it.
As far as past projects and things that we've worked on, we have the photo booth. It'll be up on the 9th. It's actually the 2.5 version of that. We built one before, and then we had this design at Outer Zone, which is over in Atlanta, back in March. And we found there was a problem with the materials we used, so we ended up having redo half of it with different materials, but we kept the overall design, and there's new software. Which runs on Linux. It's written in Python. Because it's hard to find actual photo booth software that you don't have to pay for. And ideally, once we get it to where it's completed and it works fine, we'll end up releasing all the code and design plans and that kind of thing for the photo booth, so that anybody can make their own. As far as other projects, we have. Greg's got, what is the name of the project? Is there a name? It's basically a booze dispensing backpack. It cools itself. So, you know, you'll see him walking around with it. Humor him. Get something to drink out of it. It should be okay. We were walking around with it last night. It was a blast. So if you see him walking around, you know, hit him up. Other projects, we've done anything from like high voltage to screen printing at the shop. I mean, everyone's always working on something. And there's
So portability is a big theme these days anyway. So how does a hackerspace find some sort of niche that a permanent, unmovable facility? What does that appeal to? I mean, if you can throw it on your back or throw it and stick it in a pocket, why would somebody want to settle down and do some kind of work that?
it's about pooling resources. I mean, it's essentially what hackerspaces are all about. Everybody likes working on projects. Everybody usually does when they're at home, but they may not have the tools or the expertise they need in order to do it. So actually building a hackerspace allows people to pull their tools and materials and other resources together in order to pretty much work on anything you want. I mean, like, I may not know how to code something, but there's somebody else at the space that does that I can ask.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. The way we got our space and got our electricity was by trading out work. And so our landlord wanted a website. He wanted a few other things, and I knew kind of how to do a website, but I didn't really know how to do what exactly they wanted. Well, Seablind knew how to put the website up, but then they wanted a little bit of flash stuff or whatever it was on the front side, and he didn't quite have a grip on that, but Trip knew how to do that. So it's kind of interesting. They wound up with what I consider a really nice self-maintaining website that was done through the combination of 3 people. And same way on our electricity, we had a electrician donate all the electrical stuff to us, and he wanted a network, and so Skydog set up the stuff on that. I gave him the equipment, and so between all of us, we got it done.
I'm inclined to compare this to something like Extreme Home Makeover, where opportunities are never in the same place twice. You know, ideas are fleeting. They come and go. How can you tie them? How can you anchor them to some specific structure? You know, a construction, a building, a specific place. How do you draw the creativity in? Or talent, for that matter. How do you draw it in? Is it worth keeping? Does it need to be kept?
What you guys?
Actually, I'll answer that question. But to add to the mobility question that you had, there's actually I've never seen it personally, but there's actually a mobile hackerspace. But one thing that I've noticed in the different hackerspaces that I've visited, Chicago, for example, we have a reciprocity with them. They're completely 180 degrees different than us, but any paying members from Kansas City can go there and use any of their tools, and they're full-fledged members, treated the exact same, probably with a little bit more hospitality because you don't know anybody. But I think I'd probably be able to speak for everybody here saying that each space, it's hard to pin down specifically what talents. It's our space has grown really organically, but all the spaces that I visited are worlds apart different. I mean, just completely different. People are interested in so many different things. Kansas City, for example, there's a lot of guys that are interested in network security. And through one of our founding members, he was actually able to get Astaro to donate some hardware for us to set up a war zone between Chicago and Hack DC. So that's, like, for us, that's something really unique between those 3 hackerspaces. But I know that a lot of hackerspaces are they're really maker oriented, or they're into robots. So I think it's really hard to pin down specifically. Or I mean, if you wanted, I guess you could definitely draw in and target certain individuals to make your space reflect a certain ideology. But for the most part, we've let it all happen completely organically. So.
And there are things that you can do at a hackerspace that you can't do in your apartment, like welding.
Right. I mean,
I do that in my
Yeah,
Yeah,
or do a little bit of car hacking.
Yeah.
I mean, car hack all weekend inside there when it's nasty outside.
I don't know about the rest of the panel, but pretty much the main reason why we started the consortium was because I wanted to work on my car, and I wanted to do a lot of different things, but I didn't necessarily have the tools. And when Skydog and I met, actually working on an engagement together, it was kind of interesting. We both started talking about, oh, well, you know, you enjoy network security, and we were talking about just the interests. And about 2 days later, I talked to him about a paper I'd read by the C4, the Chaos Computer Club of Cologne, on HackerSpaces. And so we started talking about it, and then we just decided to do it. And between the SC 2600, and the Nashville 2600 group, and a bunch of different groups, you know, we just got a lot of interest. And I think what primarily drives HackerSpaces, we're all very different, but what is key in all of them is you've got a lot of different guys and girls that are creative and just want to make or break or, you know, do things communally that, you know, would be helpful. So,
Yeah, and like we say at Freeside on occasion, there's only so much you can do over IRC, and then you know you got to meet face to face, and of course face to face, I can't afford $1,000 tool of some sort.
Mhm.
But you know, I'll just use the example. A member recently purchased a used 3D printer. Yeah, it's pretty, well, I haven't seen it operate, but just seeing it sit there in the space every time I go there is pretty cool. That's something I don't think anyone else in the space could afford or would be willing to afford, but he had the money to purchase it. Some others have some expertise in using it. I think some others may have chipped in a little bit towards it. And stuff like that I can't do on my own. My direct connections, I guess you can say, can't really assist me in that directly. This is a guy I never knew prior to the hackerspace, and probably not many people in the membership core knew him, but because we're mutual members of the hackerspace, we have this experience that we wouldn't have had otherwise if we did not have this hackerspace. Otherwise it'd be Flickr and chat room.
How do you decide, let's say you got a couple people who have a couple little projects that they want to do, they have to, and do they have to convince other people to help them along with it, or how do you go about that?
Like at our space, just asking goes a long way. Because we have such a wide variety of just skill sets among everyone, and they overlap quite a bit as well. But I mean, we got like 38 members, I think, something like that, hovers around in there. But you end up with such a large skill set, and it's just so easy just to go ask somebody, you know, could you help me with this? And it's not that big of a problem. Like I can't solder worth anything. But I got a lot of good ideas, and I can just, you know, I usually just ask someone, you know, for some help, and it works out.
I think the same goes for our space generally too. I mean, there's a lot of donated electronic equipment and miscellaneous stuff like that. If you have a small project you want to do, feel free to. If you maybe need a little input, like for example, I was working on an electronics project a little while ago that I needed a little additional input in. Obviously, there's some members there who are more skilled at electronics than I am. I was able to get their input, talk with them in person and online with some schematics and stuff, and we're able to hack together on this stuff. Just stuff like that. I mean, just because it's a hackerspace doesn't mean the project has to be for everyone and everyone has to have a hand in it if they want. I mean, individual one-person project. Well, I'll just use the example. About 6 weeks ago, I did a little damage to my car. Obviously, repairing my car is not going to be much benefit to the rest of the space, other than I'll be able to attend and see everyone more often. But I was able to utilize the space. You know, my apartment complex doesn't allow car repairs in their parking lot. Go figure. I was able to utilize the space and some of their tools actually. Another member had body hammers and such. So my personal project was getting my car fairly presentable again in a price range that wouldn't, you know, cut my wallet in half. And that was something I was able to do. I did have some help on that, some input, some other expertise that I wouldn't have otherwise had, the tools that I wouldn't have otherwise had, and all that fun stuff that I could use on my personal project, and that wasn't an issue. Yes.
I actually got in a discussion last night with Tim Ball from HackDC and Aesthetics from Noisebridge. I don't know. I don't think Aesthetics is here anymore, but I think he had to leave. But no, Tim Ball is. Aesthetics actually has access to where he has access to the servers for HackerSpaces.org, which is it's basically a giant list of all the other hackerspaces around the world. And he's going to set us up a mailing list specifically for asking for resources and materials and trying to arrange sharing between spaces. Because it's the simplest way to start is we'll just make a mailing list and do it kind of Craigslist style. So, so he's going to be working on that in the near future, and I'm going to stay on him and see if I can make sure it gets done because I think it's a great idea. Like recently, we came up to from Huntsville to Hacker Consortium. This was a few weeks ago, and they had a whole bunch of stuff available that they were willing to just give to us. And so we brought a van up, and we got what we could, and went back, and got most of it working. So, and it's really useful stuff. And I'd love to see that happen between a lot of other hackerspaces. If you got to ship it, or if you can arrange somebody to come by and pick it up. I mean, that would be great. It's an excellent idea. And like recently, I started going through the storage closet that we have at our space. Found out we got like 10 or so PDAs. So I just went through there and started looking up information on all the PDAs and putting it on our local wiki. Just like here's all the capabilities of it. Here's some projects you might be able to use it for, and just posting that kind of information on our Spaces wiki. Hopefully, will help some of those resources go to good use. And it could be done in the same way on the HackerSpaces.org wiki.
Also, from my experience as far as donations are concerned, we have a couple of members who started a ham club. When we went to the local ham fest, we were kind of explaining to people what we were doing, just getting in general conversations. People would just hand us boxes of stuff. And whenever you start talking to family members or friends about it, they're like, well, my friend works at such and such, and they have 13 laptops with P2s, and they'll donate them all to you because, well, depending on your space, a lot of hackerspaces are 501c3. That's an easy tax write-off. But that's actually a really good point, and something that I hadn't thought about is actually having an organized force to collect these types of things that otherwise, IBM would donate to like a local recycle center for used computer parts. So.
Yeah, that's been one of the more interesting things that has happened since I got involved. Once you explain the idea of what you're doing to somebody and have them start spreading the word, then all of a sudden everything starts coming out of the closet at you. It doesn't matter. If they're going to get rid of it, more than likely they'll contact you or somebody with the group if they know about it and say, hey, I'm getting ready to take this to the dump. Do you guys want first pick? So it's an intriguing idea, and people that maybe are not necessarily feeling like they want to join a hacker or a maker space are oftentimes entirely willing to donate everything in sight to it. It's unbelievable.
Not quite also on that note, I guess you can say, we have a good amount of our members regularly patrol, I guess you can say, Craigslist and even curbsides and stuff. For example, one of our projects that a couple of members are working on is a metal foundry, and he happened to find a pretty decent water heater in a Home Depot parking lot that apparently someone just dropped off.
Fell off the truck.
It was obviously it was obviously cut out of a building or whatever, but he obtained that for use at the space. But yeah,
Like recently at our at our space, for instance, one of our members, Justin, he found out that his boss basically had a really old 3D printer just sitting in a warehouse. And so he talked to his boss, and his boss is like, yeah, I'll donate it to you guys. So I had to drive like way out in the middle of nowhere, down like what appeared just to be tire tracks through a field to this warehouse. And there's a 3D printer sitting there. It's like a $35,000 3D printer when it first came out. The company doesn't exist anymore, and we're slowly figuring out how to get it working again. But I mean, it's a great resource just to be able to talk to people and figure out what's available. And I mean, another thing that we're doing as far as sharing resources is we recently had a HackerSpaces meetup at our space where we tried to get some other HackerSpaces to come up and try and organize like a HackerSpaces specific con. Because it'll have a slightly different feel than some other cons. And they were looking through our closet, and they noticed that we had like two of these. I guess they were like Rock Band drum sets, and they wanted one, but they forgot to take it with them. So I'm like, I could ship it to you, but I might as well just fill the box with other stuff, and you can take out what you want and then put more stuff in it and then just send it to another space. And so we're working on that, and it turns out there's the Internet Migratory Box of Electronic Junk. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. There's, I think, 3 boxes on there now that are traveling between HackerSpaces, so look for those if you're part of a hackerspace, and try and see if you can get it. Put yourself on the list and see if you can get one of those boxes.
What are some pitfalls all of you have gone through in your spaces?
Question is, what are some of the pitfalls that we've gone through with our space?
Just real quick, a real short answer is soliciting for jobs and soliciting for private work, I guess you would say. That gets weeded out almost instantly. So it really hasn't been an issue, but every once in a while we'll have people who come down with a box of stuff that they want to sell to us, or are saying, we're looking, and this a lot of this is on our mailing list and not so much in person, but we do have some people come in person and want you to try to, trying to recruit people to work. But that's really one of the only problems that we've had that reoccurs with some regularity.
I think one pitfall is getting like depressed or bummed out that nothing's getting done. Sometimes we don't produce as much as we'd like, and it kind of affects everyone else. So it's sort of a contagious atmosphere. So you're around a bunch of people. If they're really productive and they're getting into it and they're doing a lot of projects, then you feel like you want to do something. You're getting motivated. But if everybody else around you is just sitting around doing nothing, the same thing happens. So it's an amplification effect. So yeah, one pitfall to to try and avoid is to always have something going on, or else you fall into that.
For the consortium, one of our biggest pitfalls it's sort of a benefit and a pitfall in itself, is now we've got to the point where we've got so much stuff that's not cataloged, we don't know exactly what we have. And so if somebody might say, I'm looking for the extension cords, and we know where those are. We've got those in a special place. But for, I don't know, a third to half of the stuff that we have on our shelves, people have just put it up there thinking, well, you know, somebody else will be able to use it, and that's definitely true. And I'm sure even if our hackerspace didn't have anything to do with it, another hackerspace or another individual might be able to use it, but we don't have a catalog to know what's in there. So every once in a while, I've been trying to get a team to like go and inventory, and so that we put it out for maybe anybody else, or so that at least our own members can know what we have to be able to raid for different parts and or to incorporate in their own project. But I'd say that's the biggest pitfall that we've got.
I think our biggest pitfall at Freeside was when we first started up, we had a lot of stuff donated and no real place to put it and organize it. And being at the time about 50 members, we're up to about 60 now. People have different organization habits and stuff like that. Literally, we've had stuff just come in and get thrown in a mountain of donated stuff. And we have some people who are very OCD/anal about keeping things clean and organized, and others who just throw it on top of the mountain. Of course, now we went through some shelves and built some shelves.
So it's not so much a success or a failure line, it's just a done or undone.
Exactly. It's differences in organizational styles and stuff like that. It took us a little bit to get practices kind of solidified and get shelving and organization systems built. And if we were to do it again, I'm sure that'd be something we'd do before we accepted
I'll
donations.
take the assumption that all of you are somewhat familiar with each other's operations.
We are now.
If you put it to a vote, is there a way, and I'm gonna break that trend, is there somebody that may be more successful or that's gotten more done than somebody else? And yeah, can you point a finger and say those people are actually doing more?
I would say that the Huntsville crowds actually had a project up on, what was that, the Arduino lock?
Oh, Hackaday?
Hackaday, yeah.
Yeah.
They've actually probably done some projects that have got more notoriety. But we've built a building.
How do you measure success?
Yeah.
That was the exclusion. It's either done or undone. It's not quantifiable, it's quality.
Like recently, Pumping Station 1 was apparently having some kind of thing similar to like people weren't motivated or to work on things, or so, you know,
Out for themselves.
well, I don't know exactly, but they recently declared themselves a duocracy and decided that if you're not doing it, then you know, don't say it. You know, just don't bring it up. Just do things, and you know, stop all the talking.
We hit the same point when Skydog decided he was going to kill the next guy that said, "Wouldn't that be cool?" He was going to kill him and said, "Don't say that. Just do it."
We actually instituted a unofficial rule, but it's pretty official if you're a member, and it's taken pretty seriously. If you say, "Wouldn't it be cool if," you just volunteered, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to get any help and that you have to do it by yourself. But in all seriousness, that means that, you know, if you come up with an idea that you think is really cool and you want it to happen, you find the people to help you do it, and people are more than willing to help out with the project. But you're in charge of it, and if it's a cool enough project, or if you're passionate enough about it, it'll get done. Otherwise, it'll fall by the wayside, and other projects will take over.
Yeah, we just kind of had some. Yeah, we just kind of had something similar turn up where one guy on our list said, "Wouldn't it be cool if we did these tours of special places that the public normally doesn't see?" Now he's organizing those.
What kind of financial investment on the front end have you done for
Recently, Nick Farr, I think, asked that same question on the HackerSpaces.org mailing list. And you can find there's I think it's a 3-part blog post on the HackerSpaces.org blog where he asked that same question of what does everyone do as far as like finances and how do you organize that kind of thing. And I guess he was just trying to get a feel for like how all the spaces and which ones are more do it and which ones are more successful than others. And it's a pretty good read. The gist of it is everyone kind of does it differently, and usually it's going to be a combination of a few different models. Is how most of them approach it. You're going to rarely find that any one method works better than the others. You have to use a combination. Albeit angels, people who just put up like a lot of money in order to help out groups like that, or you do like a set dues rate, or you rely solely upon donations. Whether you've got a board of people representing the space, or whether you have one clear person that's in charge, or and everyone does what that person basically comes up with of how to do things. They all work. It's just different ways of approaching it. And I highly recommend just going and reading those because it's really a fascinating set of blog posts.
I believe there, as I believe you said, there's most hackerspaces are now 501c3.
A lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, including FreeSci is working towards that, and I believe they have restrictions on membership fees paid in goods or goods and services in lieu of money. So in that case, we can't. If I understand that correct, when we started, 501c3 was on our horizon, but wasn't one of the first things out of the gate. Our policy was membership as dues. Dues are not waived in lieu of donations of goods or services. You want to expand upon this a little?
Can I comment to that, please?
Yeah.
I used to work out of an communal arts space called the Lava House, Louisville Association of Vanguard Arts in Louisville, Kentucky. And it was a very similar setup to a hackerspace, except it was for artists. And, the communal workspace and that sort of thing. But we used to have people, we had people who rented space from the Lava House, and they had their own walking bays and their own studio space. But we used to have people who would come around and help out with stuff, and they would help us promote shows that we did, and they would help us with events that we were doing and whatever. And we would often just kind of let them come over and use the facilities when they wanted, and then they would be sort of, auxiliary members of the Lava House. So
And
there were a lot of different ways people could do that, but we kind of just let them keep a bucket of tools over there from time to time.
I hear you. And I think if I was to look at it as an outsider, we do something fairly similar. We do have some regular guests, I'll call them. They do participate a lot, and we're still doing some build out too. Like I said, we've only been here for like 4 months. They've done some cleanup and some shelf building and stuff like that. They're not members in that they don't have a key card to get in. They must be they cannot be in the space without a paying member present. But most paying members are willing to allow them in the space. If I'm the only one there that's a paying member, I'm allowing most guests in and doing their thing. So they are getting some of the membership benefits. It's just they are not a member. And on the flip side of that, I'm not obligated to allow all guests in. If there's this real a-hole that wants to get in there, I'm the only one there. I don't want to watch him. I don't have to let him in.
And Makers Local 256 does something along the same lines. We don't have like a set dues rate or anything. We basically left it open because that's how we got our start. Is everyone basically pledged how much they could afford a month, and then we found a space based on that. So we decided to extend that to new members as well, or potential new members as well. But it doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. But it's up to the board to decide whether the space is going to benefit from what that person has to offer, as far as like whether they keep up with the grounds for the building, or they come in and they clean the shop on a regular basis, that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's people anything from like $5 to a couple hundred. It's the range we work out of, and it does fine. Every little bit counts as far as we're concerned. And we're a college town in Huntsville, so it's understandable that students may not have a whole lot of money, or they may be from out of town going to college and they just don't have it. But they may have a lot of skills and materials and stuff to offer. So we try not to exclude as much as possible.
How has each of your spaces thought about education, and what have you been doing towards educating yourselves or the community?
A lot of our members are very interested in teaching their skills to others, and actually some members have some friends who are willing to teach that even though they are not members of Freeside. Just some examples are welding and introduction to electronics, soldering, stuff like that. We encourage and regularly hold these training sessions for members and non-members. They're open to the public. That's our policy. In general, for official, training things, obviously there's some unofficial things going on the side. But for officially held classes, we have regular classes like Electronics 101 Saturday afternoons, Python programming Tuesday afternoons, welding.
I guess it's insurance.
Welding, I believe Sunday afternoon, stuff like that. The education aspect is what we believe that to be very important, to be giving these classes and be putting back into the community this education, and as well and learning it ourselves. Most classes, I take that back, all classes are free of charge. Donation is often encouraged, and some of them, particularly the electronics classes, you'll get a list of stuff to bring or purchase, but there are oftentimes kits that are available for purchase at cost.
One thing that we did for our grand opening, whenever we started the foundation for our space, community outside of the hackerspace was a really big point that we all pushed on. For our grand opening, we had about 30 scouts come down into our space, and I'm not sure what badge specifically they got, but we taught them how to solder, how to desolder. That was actually a lot of fun. The other thing that we do, and this isn't so much education, but it's something that we thought was really important, is that each year we adopt a local charity. And this year we adopted JDoc, which is a free clinic in our area that's run by college students. And so that's one of our projects that we're working on for them, and donating some equipment and helping them set up some systems. So that's what we're doing.
As far as Makers Local 256 goes, we when we had our old space last year, we used to hold pretty regular open houses, allowing people to come in, see what we do. We'd have projects, show people, what could be done in such a space. Kind of get rid of some of the maybe like some of the misconceptions that they had. And we try and advertise those as much as possible. We haven't really done one in the new space. We've done other events though, like we had an like an AVR. It was AVR programming class pretty recently. That went over pretty well. We used Arduinos, but it was more like just dealing with the AVR chip and just sending straight code to it. But there's another HackerSpace down in Huntsville that's just starting out. They're trying to do kind of a commercial approach to it, but they're like a Adafruit Industries reseller, and so they can sell Arduinos and various electronics kits and that kind of thing. And we actually bought Arduinos from them in order to provide for the people in the class. So everyone could pay like $30 and they get like an Arduino and some LEDs and some other things for use in the class. And they get to take that away from just attending and participating. The overall class is just free, and we got 2,500 square feet and a lot of work table space. So we'll be doing more classes and just trying to bring in local, some other local communities and everything.
For the consortium, we haven't had a lot of entirely open to the public classes, just because the building was in such a state that we were really concerned about legal issues if somebody actually fell through the floor. But internally for our own members and guests, we've had classes ranging from network security and started an Arduino class that should be coming up soon. And once the building is completely finished, as Mudflap had mentioned, we still have the last room to work on is the training center. Once the training center is actually available for use, we do plan on having a lot more classes.
Yeah, the classes that we've got proposed classes up, and they range from everything from learning how to net carbon on rocks with Dremel to some Cisco stuff to some CNE study groups. So the idea is to I think what we'd like to see is probably 2 evenings a week that the classroom's being used, and then on Saturdays it's being used as well. We've got grand ideas.
Okay, so we're just about out of time. We've got about a minute left, and there was a question passed up. Have you addressed legal issues? For Makers Local 256, we haven't really run into any legal issues. How about you guys?
We haven't run into many legal issues, but I believe a sister of one of the members or something is a lawyer and has been participating with us from the beginning. Legal issues have been a concern for us as well, so we made sure we were fully insured and compliant and all this other stuff right from the get-go before we even had a space.
Yeah, the same for the consortium. Essentially, we wanted to make sure that no individual was personally liable, because we didn't want to be liable. So that's why we formed the 501 Corp, and we've got insurance, and we've tried to make that not a concern, so that when the members show up, when we're trying to recruit members, or that we're not worried about the legality of what they may do if they hurt themselves, or any of that. That we're just there to have fun.
Insurance, of course. We also were fortunate enough that we have 2 lawyers, one of which is the old president. Anybody who comes into the space for any reason at all signs a waiver right off the bat. So that's helped out quite a bit. And all paying members also sign a number of waivers and agreements. But I think that probably the easiest way and one of the best ways is have all your guests sign waivers.
And that's one thing I didn't mention either. We have a liability waiver too. It's also in draft that all members are required to sign, and guests will be required to sign also. That's before they can even open the door.
Time for the next show.
All right. All right, I guess that's it. Any other last-minute questions? All right, thank you very much. Oh, and someone wanted me to announce that there's a Dungeons and Dragons game going on in the gaming room, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, anything, you know. Keep people talking. Keep them talking.
Where's Press Market City? I think they're up next.
Was this the, they're still, wow, there's still like 3 or 4, there's 3 more.
Well, no, it's just press link and then the presentations.
Okay. All right.
Why you suck is optional. But hilarious. You should do it.
Someone just donated a $600 drill press anonymously. One guy knows, our treasurer knows who it is and let him in. But, yeah, it's a freaking $600 drill press.
Try to clear out for you guys. You've got 3 mics there to choose
All right,
from. You probably only need 2, so let me take that.
we're going to be sitting down so we can use the booms too, or whatever's easiest.
It doesn't matter. You go
All right.
ahead and strap those on. That's probably about as easy.